It's time for the Unnamed SWTOR Podcast, a podcast so good it doesn't need a name. So without any further ado, here's your host, JD. Take it away, Johnny.
Hello my friends, and welcome to episode 43 of the Unnamed SWTOR Podcast, recorded on May 4th, 2014. That's right, it's Star Wars Day, and may the 4th be with you. I'm your host, JD, aka Gaddick Teague, and in today's episode, we'll be talking about patch 2.8. It's on the PTS, well, sort of, in a limited capacity. I would say that patch 2.8 is indeed on the public test server, but what's there isn't necessarily representative of what will be going live in a couple months, or a couple weeks. And of course, with every update of the public test server, the one and only SWTOR miner has done some great work mining out whatever data he could from the download. So we'll be talking about some of that, maybe a little spoilery. So if you do not want anything like that, you may want to skip this episode because it's going to be pretty much all of that. It's going to be a shorter episode because I have double XP to get back to. So without further ado, let's force sleep right in.
Red 2, I've got a topic coming in hot, requesting clearance to engage.
Lock as foils and attack positions. You are cleared to discuss.
On Thursday, much to the surprise of many people, the patch notes for patch 2.8 were released, accompanied by a new download on the public test server, so players are able to get into patch 2.8 and try some things out. Now we know patch 2.8 no longer will be the biggest content update in the game's history because of the delay of housing. And that led many players to speculate as to the bare bones nature of patch 2.8. And if you had only read these patch notes, you may feel the same way. And they have, of course, said that this is not representative of the entire feature list of patch 2.8, as we'll talk about a little bit later with some of the data mine information. But the patch notes here are pretty bare bones. There's a bunch of class tweaks as they're continuing, much to their credit, the trend of class balancing more frequently, more often, trying new things, more things, and I think they've done a good job with that. I'm not going to talk about the class things. As you know, I don't like to talk about specific classes, except in the very extreme cases, because I'm not an expert at every class, and for every one person that wants me to talk about their class, there's going to be 7 other people that just don't care and don't know what I'm talking about. So that's why I prefer to not talk about specific classes whenever possible. But anyway, the other patch notes of note are the release of Nightmare Mode Dread Palace. So you can get in there and try out the second half of this tier of Nightmare Modes. Dread Palace was the harder instance in hard mode, so we're expecting a much harder encounter. Maybe we even have longer than a week progression on this one. That would be kind of cool, right? They also say that they've added a high-resolution shadow map option for high-end machines. This enables more detailed shadow rendering over a longer distance. I'm just gonna guess that this is going to chug 95% of the machines out there to a crawl, because this game has a pretty bad history with high-end resolution things and lag as a result of that. Scrolling through to the bottom here, we have the effective nightmare power being removed. We've talked about this before. I don't like that they're doing this. I would much prefer if they did a 4-tier system. If they're just going to have a buff that adds more damage, why not just have a middle ground between hard mode and nightmare mode so that players could progress that way? But they're doing it. I mean, it's an experiment. I'll let them try it, but I don't like how they do it this way. They've also upped some of the rewards for doing group finder content. Whatever, not a big deal. And then finally, a huge deal, I think, is that they've added the... Oh no, wait. Nope. Not talking about that yet. Not quite there yet. That's not actually on the patch note list. They've also did some tweaking to Galactic Starfighter. They've added 2 new variants for the gunship. One for the gunship, one for the bomber. Not a big thing there. Not getting the new class role, the new whatever role, which is a huge letdown. And I don't know if I forget if I've talked about this last week, but I think that I'm completely okay with them pushing back Galactic Strongholds, or Galactic Starfighter 2, as I've been calling it many times, but I think I've finally gotten a handle of it. I didn't screw up that time. I'm okay with it being pushed back as long as that is accompanied by us getting all the other things that they've talked about. if you're pushing something back, that's fine. You're gonna devote some more time to it. But if you're devoting more time and more resources and taking resources away from other things, I think that's a further detriment to the game, and not necessarily a good thing in the short term. It's gonna further hurt the short term of things that we're expecting to come, and it's gonna further hurt the game in the short term. You know, players are gonna quit. There's not a ton of content coming out right now, and if what little content they're saying is gonna come out isn't gonna come out, that's gonna cause more people to quit, and you know, maybe they'll come back for Galactic Strongholds, but there's a big gap in there between where we are now and where they pushed Galactic Strongholds back. So the pushback to me, I feel like, should have been just to give the people who were working on it more time, not necessarily to pull other people additionally off of other things and push it back. If you're gonna just push it back to give people more time, why not push it back even further and let the people who are working on it, but let everyone else continue to work on the things they're working on before, so we get a normal schedule, except for Galactic Strongholds gets pushed back. That being said, I'm not a producer, I am not a developer, I'm not a project manager, so take whatever I think with a grain of salt. I don't necessarily know if what I'm talking about is even possible, but that's just the way I see it and what makes sense in my head. Now that's all they've put on the patch notes so far. They have said that there will be more things coming, and they will update the patch notes when those are put on the PTS. But, of course, the wonderful SWTOR miner has a great thread, as he always posts when there is an update to the public test server, on the SWTOR subreddit. And he has a dump of all of the changes that have been made to the game files, and picked out a few important things. Now, he's first taken out a bunch of new cartel market packs, and it looks like they're adding in specialty cartel packs that are set up for specific things. There's the first grand mount pack, the first grand die module kit, the first grand crystal pack, the first grand emote pack, and it looks like it's just going to be a mix-up of all of the packs that we've seen so far, put into one pack, but you buy specifically the things that you're looking for. So if you're looking for an awesome mount, you're going to buy the mount pack. If you're looking for a special crystal, you're going to buy the crystal pack, etc. Overall, I don't know how I feel about this. You know how much I like the idea of keeping things special and not bringing certain things back. And especially with these, a lot of players spend a lot of cartel coins on buying the packs in the first place. And now they're setting a precedent. They've done this with bringing back the... I forgot what they called them, but they brought back the old packs in a new pack that cost a lot. But still, I don't like bringing it back at all, because those players... You know, if you're bringing back the old pack at twice the price, there are players out there who bought hyper crates on hyper crates of those packs looking for specific things, and I just think it puts a bad taste in people's mouth just seeing the thing that they thought was going to be limited time and special, and were buying it because it was limited time. And that's the whole point of them putting it out of circulation or out of business, is the fact that they add that limited feel to them, that special feel, that rarity to them, that artificial rarity. It's kind of like what they did with Beanie Babies. You know, they released a bunch of limited run Beanie Babies and artificially set the prices really high because they were so rare. But then once that supply ran out, they just printed more of them. And you keep doing that, and eventually you lose consumer goodwill and consumer faith that what they're buying is always going to be worth what they're buying it for. I think that Magic the Gathering actually does something very good with their reserved list, and this is a list of very old cards to which they have promised to never reprint in any fashion, so that the collector market, the people who bought those things at very exorbitant prices, very high prices, will always have their investment protected by the game. And I know that they've always said that those items were subject to return at some point in the future, but this just seems too soon to me. I don't know how you guys feel about it. I'm actually not a huge pack buyer. I buy three to four packs. Alright, I buy like 4 to 6 packs every time a new pack comes out. And that's all I ever buy. So to me, it doesn't really affect me personally as much, but I could see it affecting other people, and I think that could be an issue. Let me know what you think. You tweet me at GTeague. Do you care that they're bringing back the packs? Are you a big pack buyer? And if you are a big pack buyer, does it hurt you especially that they're bringing back these old packs? Or is it okay that they're at higher prices so it doesn't really matter, it doesn't affect you? Let me know. Tweet me at GT, or you can email me, gadicteague@gadicgaming.com, with your opinions on that. Now, Cartel Market, new Cartel Market items, and these are pretty cool. They are adding in the old Ricotta armor sets and the old Battlemaster armor sets as recolors in new Cartel packs. They have a couple interesting new weapons and mounts, obviously. Also shown on the public test server, and Dolphy has these. If you go to dolphy.com, check out the images she has up. They are going to be adding in a couple of different new types of mounts. They'll be adding in the Orobird, which we've discussed before in depth, that the Orobird is coming. Well, I guess not in depth. I just said that the Orobird mount will be coming, so you'll be able to ride a giant Orobird. If you want to ride a Chocobo in the Star Wars universe, this is your chance. They will also be adding some form of AT-AT, which is actually so big right now, it can't be previewed in the preview window. You just see a single foot. So those will be coming. I assume that there'll be mini versions of the 2-footed walker. Maybe there'll be 4-footed walker versions. I don't know. But I don't expect to have some kind of giant walker mount. That's definitely not going to happen. And finally, on the mount front, they're adding in a Rancor mount on the Cartel Market. I'm definitely a little sad about that. I thought that they had learned their lesson. They had removed the Rancor stuff from the last Cartel pack when 2.7, was it 2.7? Yeah, I think so. When 2.7 came out and we data mined a Rancor mount and people got really upset about that. They had removed any trace of it for being in the Cartel pack, but now it's back in, and this time it looks like it's officially coming. Yes, it doesn't have the cool purple armor or anything like that, but I thought it was really awesome seeing the people, and a decent chunk of people got that mount. The fact that it was a static 1500 rating meant a lot of players were able to get in their 10, 15 games and get their mount just like that, and I've seen plenty of them around. I don't think they were that scarce, but I think they were just too cool that BioWare couldn't resist monetizing it. Little sad. I've said it once and I'll say it a million times. MMOs are all about making individuals feel special in seas of thousands and millions of players, and I thought the Rancor mount was one way to do that without a paywall there, and sadly they've changed their mind, but what else did you expect? And finally, a new event has been data mined. Suvada, or Suvada, I don't know how you say it, but it translates to Splendorous Summer in Huttese. It's some kind of summer festival. The description reads, an annual celebration of total extravagance in Hutt culture. Rival clans compete to prove their superior wealth, attempting to sponsor the most pirates, pit fights, bounties, gambling, and other public displays of fortune and excess imaginable. Popularized on Nar Shaddaa, this exuberant holiday is now celebrated on hundreds of worlds across the galaxy, where it is most commonly known as Festival of Splendor. I think this is a very awesome sounding event. The things in there that really excite me, the mention of gambling, maybe we will finally see Pazak and Sabak added. I don't know if this will be an event that has to do with housing. Maybe it will be. It seems like when they say it was first popularized on Nar Shaddaa and then spread to other worlds, Nar Shaddaa is one of the housing areas. Other worlds, maybe they could be Coruscant, Dromund Kaas, and Tatooine. Who knows? That makes sense to me. So it could be related to housing in some form or fashion. Also, we have seen the Sabak and Pazak tables in some of the screenshots we've gotten, and some of the videos that we've seen. We've kind of checked them out in the background, or at least what we thought were card game tables, so maybe gambling could be added in somewhere there. I've thought gambling should be in the game for a long time. Of course, they really need to separate it from credits in all possible fashions, just because the legality of credits can somehow be translated to cartel coins, and well, really it's cartel coins can be really translated into credits, and you don't want any way for players to spend real money and gamble it in your game. Legally, I don't think they can get away with that, and just morally, I think that's a big slippery slope for them. So I don't know if they can actually get away with that. But there are other ways they could do it. Commendations, of course, are the easy way. You gamble to gain reputation with the Hutts or other clans and things like that, so I think that would be very exciting. Bounties, we've seen bounty contract week, so maybe we'll be seeing something similar to that. Or a new way of collecting bounties. Who knows what that means. But in general, I'm excited to see another event. When I spoke to Damien Schubert at the New York City Community Cantina, as I've discussed before, we did talk about how the events were seeming very stale because they were repeating the same events. They were repeating too few events too frequently, which made them feel stale. At that time, it was just Bounty Contract Week and the Great Event. Then they added back in the Rackle event. Now they're adding in a summer event. We haven't seen an event in a long time. I think players are starting now to ask, hey, when is the Great Event coming back? Hey, when are we going to see the Rackle event coming back? We think that was going to go to another planet at some point. When's that going to happen? I think that only good could come from adding in more new events. I like the fact that events are not set up to directly mirror real-world events, because they can put them in more surprisingly and more frequently if they wanted, or less frequently when they want. I like the fact that we haven't seen the Rackle event come back. I thought they were going to beat that to death. I thought we were going to see that every month or something like that. I'm glad that they've restrained themselves, because now it does feel more special and people are clamoring for it. So when they do bring it back, people will be more excited for it. And whenever this event comes out, people will be excited for that one too. And we'll be able to put more time in between events. We'll really get players clamoring for a certain event to come back. It'll actually make that event, even though it's happened before, more of an event because it's more rare. And scarcity drives up the desire to play something, you know, if you want to get in on that special event. And the more interesting and cool events we have, the more content we can get in a single patch, even if some of it's recycled content. If you have new content and add on top of that an event that we've seen before, that just makes for a bigger, more exciting patch, and I'm a big fan of that. So that's what we've seen in the patch 2.8 PTS, and from the stuff from SWTOR Minor. Thank you very much, SWTOR Minor, for doing all your great work. He's been on the show before. He's a great guy and really, really good at what he does, so thanks for doing that. He also has some spoilers that he's posted from the story content that may be coming soon. If you are interested in story spoilers, I'm not going to go over them here, but you can check them out. I'll put a link to his page on the show notes, and you can see them there. That's going to be it for today's show. I'm sorry it's a short one, but like I said, double XP weekend. Need to go level up my characters. I got a bunch of characters that I'm trying to get up this week. I want to get like 2 characters to 55, and then hopefully 2 to 50. We'll see if I'll be able to do that by the end of the day. I don't know. It is Star Wars Day, so I think I can get away with playing a little bit of extra SWTOR. And with that, it's time for the Wall of Crazy.
What? That's impossible even for a computer.
It's not impossible. I used to bullseye womp rats in my T16 back home. They're not much bigger than 2 meters.
And for this week's Wall of Crazy topic, in honor of Double XP Weekend, which is going on right now, and as you're listening to this, has already passed, so you missed out. Sorry about that. But I ask you on Twitter to give me other ideas for community type events like the Double XP Weekends that they can get to get players playing the game. You know, they can't do Double XP Weekends forever. Eventually players will have all the characters that they want to level already leveled up. So they need to come up with other new different ways to get players playing their game again. It would be a really good idea if they could come up with a different kind of community event in order to drive up player populations on certain weekends or special weekends. And your suggestions. So at SWTOR Buckeye starts us off with, I think an obvious one that they could do is a double Warzone Con weekend or a double Honor weekend, something like that, in order to get the PvPers a little bit involved as well. You could maybe even stretch this out to a Flashpoint thing too. You get double rewards for completing Flashpoints and things like that, in order to really drive up those populations during certain weekends. At Mill Effect, Mr. Miller says something like PvP strongholds to attack each other and such, so that would be an interesting thing once we have strongholds, maybe some kind of stronghold invasion event or something like that. I don't think that's kind of more on the scale of an event versus what I think the Double XP Weekend is, which is basically them just flipping a switch and saying go ahead with this. I think double Warzone comms would be something similar to that. That's really what I was looking for. Something that doesn't require much work from Bioware's end. They can get players into the game. At Turfree Studios says Holocron races. First to get all in a new character unlocks unlocks the stats account-wide. That's an interesting one. I think that's definitely something to be said there. They can get more mileage out of the datacrons, I think, and I think that an event or some kind of community thing around those like this, I think players would be upset that they weren't just account-wide to begin with, but I think giving players who have already done them on one character some incentive to do them on another. I don't know what that incentive could be, but that's definitely something interesting that they can do. So thank you everyone who had suggestions for this week's Wall of Crazy topic, and keep watching my Twitter for future Wall of Crazy topics that you'd like to chime in on. As always, if you'd like to contact me, send your questions, comments, concerns to gaddockteague@gaddockgaming.com, or you can tweet them to @gteague on Twitter. This week we do not have an Astromech code winner. I apologize for that, since we did not have a second segment. I did not use anyone's idea for the second segment. If you would like to give me an idea for something you'd like to hear me talk about, or something you'd like covered in the show, you can send your questions or comments to gaddockteague@gaddockgaming.com, and if I use it, you will get a shiny new Astromech code. Those are the new pets that they are giving out in lieu of the Tawn Fawns, so go ahead and send me those emails if you'd like to win a pet. Make sure to subscribe on iTunes to get your weekly podcast updates, and I am now on Stitcher for all of you that were asking for that. That has been done officially, so I'll be on there if you prefer using that. If you're new to the game or thinking of resubscribing, I provided my refer a friend link in the show notes, so if you'd like a little added incentive to come back, feel free to use it. You could also check out my website, gaddockgaming.com, where I post the podcast, videos, and any other gaming things that I feel like posting. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of the Unnamed SWTOR Podcast. This is JD, signing off.